Welcome everybody back here at Veil of Sound, one of our regular Sunday interviews, but I think this one goes down in a long list because these very two fine gentlemen that you see here have been in a band for more than 30 years, which goes down as one of the longest running bands that we've had the pleasure to interview here at the Veil of Sound. I'm very, very happy to have Slim Cessna and Munly J from Slim Cessna's Auto Club here on the show. So thanks, guys, for joining.
Oh, thanks for having us.
My pleasure.
Wonderful.
We have a lot to talk about, but first of all, I gotta ask this: a band that is called Auto Club. What is your favorite automobile? Slim, which one would you choose?
Yeah, I don't know. The name of the band seemed like a good idea at the time, a long time ago. I don't really care that much about automobiles. I do like a nice Ford 15 passenger Econoline.
A man who thinks in the term of usability. That's always cool.
That's right.
Munly, do you have a favorite kind of automobile?
Certainly not. No. Just as I've gotten older, it's just a piece of metal. As are most things, they're just an object. However, I do miss when I first started going in that sort of ideology, I got rid of my F-150, and I do miss that.
Yeah.
It was both practical and nice. Yeah. But other than that, no. And it's also, I think it's somewhat of a play on a lot of the music that we get lumped into. We're not exactly
we'll come to the problem.
So,
yeah, you go ahead, Munly.
So, a lot of culture who likes our type of music is called, sort of somewhat car culture. And, we drive reliable Volvos. And
would you now say that the name of a band somewhat haunts you? Because I guess that I'm not the only one to ask a question like that.
I don't know if I'm speaking for myself. It doesn't haunt me. It's just kind of what it is. I kind of forgot that it's even a thing that means anything. It's been so long. It's just like we're just the Auto Club. But I don't even think about the answer to I'm sitting in a 2007 Toyota, and I just don't really care. Also, like Munly, we're not really car people.
And just to clarify that, I don't want to feel like people who are in that car culture who have been with us a long time. I'm not. We want you. So it's not as if please don't think I'm making fun. We want everybody. We want bike riders and tricycle riders and scooter riders. No, but I just wanted to clarify that.
That is a very good point, and I think this openness towards everyone is also, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's also somewhat reflected in your sound, or can also be seen in your sound, which is also very, very open. It has a clear basis, but I think it has a lot of different elements to it. Is that something that is important to you, that you don't restrict yourself to one certain thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Slim, but to me, that's actually really flattering to hear. Musically, I don't think we can be put into one category. and we want to invent our own category, and with that, that brings in a new audience, and hopefully that audience draws from every spectrum. So yeah, we hope we're open. We're not. I think Slim's a bit more loud about it than I am. I think I'm more open in my lyrics and stories. So that's the way I show my openness, and it's actually really flattering to hear that someone would, that's being acknowledged.
I think it's very important to acknowledge it because I mean, we will talk about the basis of your music, but I think when somebody really listens to it, it's much more than folk music, and it's so much more. But Slim, I think you wanted to say something about that openness in sound.
Well, I'm agreeing with Munly, and I think the root, I mean, the foundation is, perhaps you could consider it folk music. Munly's writing stories, and we're telling them in a musical format, which is, I think the foundation is that, but then I think that we all have so many different influences. I mean, even the landscape of Colorado is like a major influence, I think, in our music. It's dangerous, and it's beautiful, and it's destructive, and it's peaceful. You can go on and on and on. Like I think that we're proud of where we're from, and as anybody would be from where they are. But it's so I think that we use different things that aren't often even thought of, like is musically, I suppose.
It's interesting that you mention your location, Denver, where you live. And I was laughing a little bit, or smiling, because it's one of the questions that I also wrote down for myself. I think that Denver is very important for your band because, well, somehow for people outside of America, especially for Europeans like me, sometimes Denver seems like a little enclave of worldliness and openness, somewhere in the middle between some of the most conservative regions of the USA and some of the most liberal regions of the USA. Would you agree with that? That first of all, that is Denver, and second of all, this kind of mental openness is a good breeding ground for your music?
I never thought of that personally, but I think that you're right. It is in the middle. So Denver is somewhere in the middle. It's like in the middle of the country. It's in the middle of, like conservative, liberal. You get outside of Denver and you're into very conservative territory. I actually live in a small town about 2 hours from Denver, Fair Play, and it is it's very conservative, but it's hard to. I don't really know what I don't know. I'm kind of. I do think that is part of it, though. I think that thinking about what you were saying, I think that is. I think we do find ourselves in the middle in a lot of things, or I do at least.
Munly, would you agree that it's a good breeding ground for your kind of music?
Yeah, it's really the only breeding ground for our kind of music. It's just natural, certainly more so in the States than any other place in the world, because a lot of these cities grew up around universities and colleges, so that's where the larger population goes. and it is a bit more liberal. And you can just visually look at a map, and to go to the next liberal city, you have to drive to Austin, which is very similar. It's just this little island in the midst of chaos.
Yeah.
You look at Lawrence, Kansas. Lawrence, Kansas is another 8 hours. That's the university town. And so it's very natural in the States. There's these pockets of blue. I don't know if that's a worldly term, but blue here in the States is a bit more liberal.
Blue and red will be important in November, right?
They're important right now. Yeah. And we don't really talk about, at least I don't, about that out loud. But to me, this is a different time, and it is something to talk about out loud. I think it's obvious. I think it's obvious where our viewpoints lay with what we've chosen to do with our lives. We live with artists, we create art. It's pretty obvious where we lay, but it's important to have your voice heard.
Let's also point it out. I'm very sure that you are not supporters of the GOP, right?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. For everybody who might not be
just
familiar with political terms in the US, the GOP is the Republican Party, the grand old party. But Munly, you wanted to say something.
It's just come to a point even where if Biden's policies, and if the gas prices are higher, if taxes are higher, it just doesn't matter anymore. It's just, to me, it's just a point of human decency, which is, there's no human decency in the Orange Menace.
Yeah, that's a good point. Or as I like to call him in my politics class, I always talk about the orangutan.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. For me, it's not so much about the conservatives versus liberals, because I tend to think that there needs to be some balance, though I am personally very liberal. But it's more about just we can't have Trump. We just can't have it. It's not possible for me to even think about another 4 years with him.
That is very true. But for everybody out there, everybody knows where I'm standing. I'm standing on the same side as the guys. But I also want to point something out. The US have gotten through 4 years of Trump. And even if worst comes to worst and push comes to shove, they will still get through another 4 years. And, but of course, that is something that we don't want. But I want to talk about the record. I want to talk about the record because that is very important to me, because I like the so-called Denver sound. It is something that I came to like a lot over the last couple of years, decades. And it's very interesting whenever anybody looks up that term, the Denver sound. Nowadays, he finds two things, as I've seen. He either finds you two at the core of it, or the also very good Colorado, Denver death metal scene. But let's talk about you. When you two set out doing this 30-some years ago, were you aware that you were doing something that has not been done, or that had not been done that often before?
I don't think I never really thought about it. Like at the time, we were just playing music that was, we were kind of trying to be a country band, but also knowing that wasn't completely what all of our influences were, like as much of an Echo and the Bunnymen fan as I am Willie Nelson, you know, and or Joy Division, or you know, what, like, you can, the list is long of influences. And I do think that we were enjoying, I know that we were making something completely different that hadn't been heard before, like that. You know, there's always been like country punk or whatever. You can think of Jason and the Scorchers, or, you know, like the Gun Club. But I don't think, I think that we were completely individual and just ourselves. And when we made, it wasn't a conscious decision, but when there was a point where we were not worrying about what kind of music it was anymore. And I think that once that happened, it was just kind of an explosion. And but I don't think we didn't like sit around and talk about it. It just happened, you know. I don't know. I don't know if I'm even answering your question.
You are, because I'm once again coming to that one point. What I always try to tell people when they talk about labels and genres and all of that, it is easy to put a stamp on a finished product. But most of us forget that behind that piece of vinyl that we're holding, it is not a minute's thing. It's not even the thing of a month or half a year. Most of the time, it's the result of a process which has taken the people who made a certain record. Took them a very long time.
Yeah.
And that is something that people forget. I also know that it's important for people to have some kind of label so that they know what they're up for, but they shouldn't try to search in an artist's music for exactly that sound. And your sound, it's interesting that you mentioned that. You said that, yes, it is some kind of country. Here, a question of mine that I think is important to answer. Would you consider your band, difficult, would you consider your band more of a country band or more of a folk band nowadays?
Well, I think now I mean, I'm not sure how Munly feels, but I would consider it more of a folk band. Just by the definition of it, not necessarily a sound of it. Like we're telling stories. Munly's writing stories, and we're putting those to music. And I think that, and they're very American stories, and so I would call it American folk music.
Munly, would you agree with that?
Well, yeah, but I would also, I think it goes back to your first point of it being labeled the Denver sound. I think those labels get put on by outside people who aren't directly creating that, you know, whether it be a literature group, you know, sitting around a round table in France. They didn't know that people were going to call them, you know, whatever, or the Algonquin Club. They didn't know that at the time. It didn't happen until 30 years later. So I don't know if we sat around and go, let's think of a creative little tab to put on us. That being said, it's very flattering to be part of that. And
Yes,
you know, that we didn't have a label for it at the time is certainly understandable, but I feel like we've always wanted to do something new. I have. And again, though, we don't particularly sit around and speak about that. You know, hey guys, let's do something new. You know, we just do it. We work. And probably that's how we came together and were able to stay together for so long, is that you gravitate towards people with the same interests. And you know, otherwise you move on. And that's part of the battle too, is it's sort of a war of attrition. And there's a lot to be said for me that you keep going no matter what the circumstance. You know, whether it's a volcano, which we've had cancel the tour, COVID. You know, those are the most recent things. But I sort of diverted from your answer. Suddenly, I
doesn't matter. But would you agree with Slim when he said that at the core of your band there is this storytelling? That is the telling
certainly,
that is
and
so
that's what
important?
certainly, which is technically folk music, is the telling of stories. You know, whether those are the first stories where people sitting around a fire and chanting, you know, not particularly speaking words, but telling their stories through pictures on a cave wall. I would be curious to see. So technically, right now, sure, we're folk music. I would be curious to see what we're called in 30 years. I hope there's a new term for it.
Yes.
I think the problem, and I think the problem is that if anybody wants to put a label on it, it must be folk, because folk is by definition, as Slim said, the telling of stories. First of all, because musically it's hard to grasp, you guys. It's as much June and Johnny as it is post-punk, as it is real country. Yeah, but it's difficult to grasp, and that's something that I like. I like it when it's not easy to pinpoint somebody. Let's, for the sake of it,
I'm
call
proud
it
of
folk
that.
music.
Like, I think that's a great accomplishment. Like, if I were to say, like, you know, what have we done that's like special? Like, is that we don't fit into the categories, but and that I think as artists, like, that's like a fantastic achievement, and it's great to hear you back that up, because we don't do, like we said, it's not like on purpose. We just kind of let things happen, and it becomes what it is. But it's also been, I think it's been like career wise, like, you know, we don't fit into the categories on Spotify or at the record store. And I think that we have made it more difficult for people to find us because of that. And so we just keep going and hope that people find us along the way somehow.
Just to go off on that a little bit as well, I just want to clarify. I don't feel like it's a purposeful thing. You know, it's not. Let's be. You know, we're not trying to be difficult and not fit into a category. It's just that the six of us came together, and this is what we do. You know, if we could sell out stadiums, we wouldn't be who we are. And I do think we could sell out stadiums if people, you know, but it has to be with what we're doing. Does that make sense? We're just,
it does.
I guess I should have, just to be more succinct, we're not trying to be difficult and to be contrary, just to be contrary. It's how it comes out. And if it didn't come out this way, it would not be us. And you would be able to easily put us in a category, which is also fine. I'm amazed when bands can do that.
It's just a question whether those bands go for 30 some years. For you guys, what comes first in your process? Is it the music or is it the story?
To me, it's a mixture. I'm certainly always writing words. It goes both ways. I don't have a secret formula for myself. And if I did, I certainly wouldn't say it live on air.
You don't sell the secret recipe, right? Slim, what would you say? First the music or first the story for yourself?
Well, for me, I mean, I don't know if I'm relevant to that at the moment, like especially with the latest album or the latest few albums. It's all been Munly writing the songs, so I do still write, and I do still, so I would, but it hasn't been presented with the Auto Club for a while, so. But if it were to be me, it would be both. It would be like sometimes one thing and sometimes the other.
Then let's dive into the new record. And I think before we dive into the new one, we might have to explain the whole concept behind this album, the album that you have released some time ago, and an album that you will release sometime in the future, because it is a trilogy. So, and Munly, you might have to explain that a little bit for our audience. It is the Kinnery of Lupercalia. That is the name of a trilogy. Correct me if I'm wrong. But can you explain the storyline a little bit, the overarching theme, before we then dive into the new record, the Buell Legion? Sorry.
Right. Yeah. I had a difficult time sort of explaining this, and this comes back to your previous question of how it's so difficult to categorize. I just always felt odd. It's just so odd to me speaking about yourself, which I guess is what this is. I hope these are stories somewhat of ourselves. Certainly the geography is. There's maps included with all the albums of this land of Lupercalia. And if anyone knows what Colorado looks like, it's very similar to this. There's impenetrable mountains on the west and a wasteland to the east. I've taken liberties in the other direction, but metaphorically, it resembles Colorado or even the States, geographically. So within that land, and this originally stems from Peter and the Wolf as well. I imagined that they were sort of one of the indigenous people of these lands. However, that's not completely true. If people are patient and stick with the full story, they'll see something else eventually. Is that enough, or do you need me to keep talking?
That is for the first moment enough, but
okay.
The first record that you did that you released some time ago was called Part 1, The Undelivered Legion. Now the second one is I don't even know how to pronounce it correctly, Buell, I don't know, Legion. Maybe first you tell me how to pronounce it.
Buell.
Okay, so the Buell Legion. What is that about? Who is the Buell Legion?
Well, there are sort of three main families in Lupercalia right now. However, they all did stem from the Northrops, and the Northrops come from the Peter and the Wolf clan. So, if you need me to peel it back more, essentially a lot of these people are blood related. I'm not going to completely go into that. If you want to, I would rather people decipher that for themselves and go, well, what exactly does that mean that they're related? What are the implications there? So essentially, the Buells are I thought best represented the Auto Club. They're a bit more boisterous, and they're happier. They're a happier clan than some of the others.
Oh, so
I'm sorry,
okay.
I keep interrupting you.
No, that is cool. So you would say that the Buell Legion is the happier clan of the three. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out stuff that But I've been reading and looking up and revisiting and stuff. Okay.
Where is the undelivereds are a bit more reserved and quiet, and and then the Tools, who will be represented by DBUK, are a really quiet and reserved group.
Then I gotta ask it this way.
So if you know the music, it fits with every band, at least in my head and how I picture ourselves.
Yeah, I can see that, because, and here we come to the sound and to the music of a new record. It is very delightful, and I mean that in the most positive way. Listening to the record, I think it's hard to listen to the record and have a grim face at the same time. So you definitely achieved something in these times that we're living in right now. And of course, I know it's not a conscious decision, but now knowing that it's related to the story, yeah, I can see that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, all these characters, I hope, have depth, and so some of these characters, even in the Buell Legion, they're not the best characters sometimes. A few of them are wonderfully just kind of shallow, happy characters, but a lot of them resemble true humans, and they have many layers, and they're gray. Sometimes they have bad days, and sometimes they have great days. I hope we've captured that. Even if they do seem dark, essentially they want to be decent people, or at least fighting to be decent people.
It's very interesting that you mentioned that, because when I listened to the record, I felt drawn back to a sitcom that I first heard of when I was in the States in the 90s, because we never had that. We never really had that here in Europe. But there is one of those sitcoms of the 70s that I feel fits this kind of vibe, and it was Happy Days. It was like a collection of people who seemed to have like a good time.
I love that.
I have no response for that.
I'm Richie.
So who's the Fonz then?
Yeah, that would be Munly.
That would be Munly. Okay.
Yeah, because when the jukebox isn't working, all he has to do is give it an elbow, and then it goes on.
Oh yeah. Now a lot of things make sense, and that delightful nature of the songs is sometimes done through tiny things. For example, you have a track on the record which is called Easter. And I listened to it and I was like, why does it remind me of, and I didn't look up a name when I first listened to it. And I was like, why does it remind me of the Middle East? There were some sounds in there where I was like, that could be some kind of Middle Eastern country. So these mixtures go hand in hand. But I have to ask one thing and one detail, because it drove me nuts. Did you use this little thing on Caesar, which you also use when you try to hunt ducks? Is there this flute or horn that you use to imitate the duck sounds?
Well,
wait, which song?
I think it was Caesar.
And just to clarify again, that what you're saying is Caesar is actually pronounced Cesare.
Okay, Cesare. Sorry. So, but is there this thing that sounds like you imitate a duck?
Well, I won't answer that directly, but I want you to remember. No, it's nice that you. I want you to remember that the first family here was Peter and the Wolf. So I think you're coming to your answer. I'm watching you think right
yeah,
now.
I am.
So
It's
y-
wonderful to see.
so you remember that a lot of those, a lot of people came to Peter and the Wolf not through Tchaikovsky, but through the Disney film of where the animals were represented with
Yeah, with
certain
sounds.
sounds. And now go back to what we had spoken about earlier. A lot of these people stemmed from the Northrops.
Mhm.
Well, everyone did. And they're all related. Some ended up over here on the Buells, and some are with the Tombs, and some are still in the middle, and they're undecided. They're undelivered. So that's the answer I'm going to give you.
But that is, you know, for somebody who's listened to those two records already, I have a good answer now. Everybody outside who says like, what the heck, can they not be a little bit more clearly and a little bit more open? No, sometimes it's nice to find out things for yourself.
Well, yeah, and it's, I know how frustrating that can be, and even to people in the band.
I'm
But
learning
there's
things
something,
right
but there's something so much more rewarding. There's
It
something
is.
so much more rewarding to me when you find out things for yourself and you discover them and come across them. You know, I guess I'm all for. I'm not. I'm not a Goodreads person, or I don't need to read the people's reviews on Amazon. But there's a part of the world that needs that.
Yeah.
And I guess I need to. I'm relying on the other people in the band too. I'm sorry, to deliver that for us. Unfortunately, I'm just incapable of that, and this is what I'm offering.
Can I ask maybe a rather personal question then, Munly? Would you consider yourself more of a prophet or of a teacher? And if you need to, I can clarify that.
I wouldn't consider myself either.
Then I have to clarify being a teacher by profession. I think that some of the best lessons are the lessons where, just like you say, students discover things for themselves. And that to me often is the good, one of the characteristics of a good teacher. So I then want to ask again, you know, in that context and with that explanation, would you consider yourself more of a prophet or of a teacher? Probably more of a teacher, right? When you let people discover stuff.
I'm still doing my best to avoid answering that. But
Still cool.
but by no means
I'll answer for
am I
yeah.
by no means am I a prophet.
Yeah.
I'll start right there.
Yeah, that is already a good one.
Yeah.
Slim, you wanted to say something?
Oh yeah, he's a teacher and I'm a prophet.
Yeah. Okay. Then Slim, let me take you on because you have been silent for so long. There are a few questions that I want to ask you straight.
Oh,
And
God.
first question is,
I've been busy
how does
learning
it
about
feel
the
to
album.
be? How does it feel to be in a band with your son?
With my son. Oh, that's fantastic. I think it's great for all of us because you know, like Munly and Dwight have been there for the whole journey of George growing up, and we've all have been a part um of his life, and having him in the band. Well, first of all, he's very good. Like he's a fantastic musician. And it is not, you know, he's not in the band just because he's family. He's also, I mean, of course, that's a big part of it, but also like we needed a bass player, and he is as good as anybody. So that, you know, and with his background vocals and just he's just for me as a father, it's just awesome to have him along, you know, to tour with him and to be. It's a family band anyway. Like, you know, we're all we've all been there for each other and with each other through all kinds of interesting situations, even that always happen, and surviving conflicts and ups and downs, and whatever. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I love having them around, and I think we all do.
Then I wanna again, please. Sorry.
And I'm proud of him. I think we all are. But he makes his own records, and he has, there may come a time when he just needs to go and continue his own work, and because he's just as good as any of us, and has been. I don't know if you've ever heard his music, but his latest album, George Cessna, is absolutely fantastic, and it's a journey from beginning to end. It's just lovely.
Mm-hmm. And on the other end of the historical scope, I of course have to talk about two moments in the time of Slim Cessna Auto Club. One is, how did it feel to be on the same label as Neurosis? When you were on Alternative Tentacles.
Yeah, well, I think that they were already long gone from the label before we were there. Just the conflicts with Jello and whatever the situation was. I think that we went through something similar with the label eventually, but our situation was resolved a little bit easier than having courts and lawyers involved. But and I'm not going to say anything bad about the label, because Jello is family, and someday I hope that he's going to remember that. I'll just leave it at that.
That is totally fine. You have now joined a German label, if I'm right. You joined Glitterhouse Records, didn't you?
Yeah, we have a few albums with Glitterhouse, though this latest is not with Glitterhouse. I think we kind of lost our connection. One of the guys left, Lutz, and I'm not completely sure what the whole story is, but I think it just became easier for us to do it ourselves in Germany as well. Though they do help us with, I think that we still ship records to them, and they kind of help us distribute them around. I don't know. We'd have to ask Todd about that.
All good.
But Glitterhouse was awesome for us. I think it really helped us get a foot in the door deeper into Europe by being with Glitterhouse. Yeah.
That is also something that I thought of. I thought of, in general, that is a very good good label for you to have been on and maybe be on again in the future, or to use also as a distro. I think Glitterhouse is a well fit for the Auto Club. Last question.
Never complain.
Yeah, last question. And I'm also sure you have heard that question before. But how was it to be in a band with David Eugene Edwards in The Denver Gentlemen, if I remember correctly?
Yeah. It's interesting. So Dave and I were in a band together in the 80s. It was called Bloodflower. And so this was before Bloodflower kind of morphed into the Denver Gentlemen, I suppose. It was kind of more of a psychedelic gospel rock band, if you can imagine such a thing.
I can.
But and then we all kind of became obsessed with country music and folk music, and then it kind of turned into the Denver Gentlemen through that experience of us rediscovering the music of our parents and things like that. But it was, I mean, I don't know how it was fine being in a band with him. We don't see, he's a very good friend, I think, to all of us. We don't see him often because he's traveling and we're traveling, and we run into each other in interesting places, like in the Netherlands. All of a sudden we'll be playing the same festival or whatever. But Orty, who was once our drummer, and also the drummer for Woven Hand, he passed away last summer. And that was a big deal for all of us, David and us. And so we were able to see each other at Orty's memorial, and that was really nice. Just to connect and to remember. And he's certainly, I would consider him a brother, though we don't speak and talk to each other hardly.
Is it one of those things that when you see somebody again, there is not this, but when you see each other again, that there is not this awkward moment of silence? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, there's always an awkward moment of silence with me, but yeah, I think it's more for me. It's like when we see each other, it's always just really nice, and it's always good to reconnect. Though I wouldn't say that we are like, we don't connect outside of that. Like, but at the time in the 80s, like we were best friends, and but it just kind of went in different directions, and but we had the same. I think that's all part of it, really, like, and I'm not like trying to pretend that I'm the foundation of what you call the Denver sound, because there's a group of people, and Munly is one of them, and I'm one, and David's one, and we kind of, in Denver at the time in the 80s and the early 90s, there wasn't really anything happening with music, and bands weren't coming through except the bigger bands playing at Red Rocks, like U2 would play there, and the Clash and everybody. But the club bands, that it became our own scene, and we built our own community of people who, and now Denver's like a hot spot where people, bands are here all the time, and there's a million venues, but we made our own venues, and we made our own community, and I think that we all kind of had similar influences. Somehow everybody liked country music and everybody liked Joy Division, and it was just kind of an interesting time, and so there are similarities, and but we all did it together, and we had people coming from one band to the other, and moving about in different pieces, and so I'm personally proud of being a part of that, with David and with Munly and with Jeffrey Paul,
and totally deserved as well. I think that is something that we should all say and acknowledge. So, guys, first of all, thanks for the insight into the record. And, everybody who's still out there and says, like, I would like to know more, then listen to it. Listen to it, read, educate yourself. But nobody leaves the Veil of Sound interview without having to go through the infamous quickfire round, where you will both be given a number of questions, which is always something like, okay, Los Angeles or San Francisco, Boston or New York, which one do you like more, or which one would you rather listen to right now? And to give you an easy example, and also to let's open this one, I'm not sure if I will get any answer out of the two of you, but I use it to show what I mean. If you were to go to a professional sports match, would you rather go to... Where is Slim? Okay, Munly, then first it's just the two of us. Would you rather go to the Broncos or to the Nuggets?
Not applicable. I'd rather watch the worst hockey game in the world than either of those.
Okay. Does Denver have a hockey team?
Yes. Colorado Avalanche. They.
Oh yeah, yeah, of course. Ah, stupid. Yeah, of course. They even have a German on the team a few years back, Uwe Krupp.
They had Uwe Krupp, yeah, who's a great
Yeah.
coach now. Nearly.
Yeah, he is. He is. He's a good coach. That's true. So, but at least we found something. So it's the Avalanche. Okay, cool. Who would you rather listen to right now? Towns Van Zandt or Willie Nelson?
It actually cut out. I heard you say Towns Van Zandt and then mumble mumble.
Yeah, Towns
I'm
Van
going to go
Zandt
with
or
mumble
Willie
mumble.
Nelson? But
I know I'm not playing very well, but neither. Again, I would rather create. I don't want to. I've
okay.
listened to people before. I would rather be the one that is listened to.
But then let me ask that question. You say that you are always writing in a way. So are you already into the last part of the trilogy?
Oh yeah, that's all written. I've had that done for a while. I see Slim's trying to reconnect. It looks like so. Let's get him back. See if you can get some. So someone can answer your questions correctly instead of avoiding them.
Don't underestimate yourself. But I think there is another question that you also might answer, because I know that playing live is a very important thing for the band. And I guess that you rather like smaller clubs. But out of the following two bigger venues, where would you rather play? At Mile High Stadium or at Red Rocks?
Well, we've played Red Rocks a couple of times, so sure, I'll try Mile High Stadium, because then I could stay for the Nuggets game.
Which at the moment is not a bad choice.
The Nuggets don't play in the football stadium.
They play. I don't know if they play at Mile High, but it's a good choice. So Slim, I don't know if you hear us, but we can definitely not see you, and you are muted. Let's wait a moment.
Here, I can text him while we're doing this. See if he can.
That's fine.
He might not even realize
that he's on. That might be
right.
Munly, I'm pretty sure that also you have some influences, people that you like to read or to listen to. Oh, there is another Slim.
Two.
It's two Slims. I don't know if I can handle that much. Very often your band is labeled like, or very often in the context of your band, one finds the term of American Gothic. But let me ask it this way. Do you prefer the writers of the English Gothic period in the 19th century, or some Southern Gothic, like 20th century, like Anne Rice or stuff like that? What do you rather read?
Certainly, I guess this would refer back to your original question a long time ago, about an hour ago, that it doesn't. I don't read labels per se. I guess if it's good, I would read it. Mm-hmm. So I don't care if they're from Southern Indiana or Lancashire County.
But do you have like writers that you like and look up to, and where you say, okay, that might be an influence onto my own writing?
Probably at one time I did, but I'm not in that place anymore. I'm too busy working and writing.
Okay.
And and again, to avoid your question, I think people need to those people who you want me to name. I found them on my own, and I think. God, that sounded like an accusation. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way.
No.
I find that it's just so much more rewarding to me. And when I read, I do it alone. And I went, you know, it just makes it that much more special to me. It's the same with music too, with bands that I still listen to from the '80s. You know, that I found them on my own, and I'm secretive with them, and I keep them to myself because it's just my special thing. And what I think that is more telling of is what a selfish person I am. You know, music's supposed to be celebrated, and no.
I don't know if I would call it selfish, but let me ask something without wanting a name, or a band's name. Are there bands from the '80s where you can still say for yourself, "Oh, I'm one of a few to listen to them," or like there are not many who have discovered this band?
You know, that's not something I would know. I don't really talk music with other people.
Okay.
It's just and you know what I've found. You have mentioned us being together for 30 years, but if it is a full onslaught of 24 hours of music, you get burned out.
Right.
And so I need to, I found those things where it keeps it special, and one of the things that's fascinating to me and might sound lazy to other people is, but we don't particularly practice anymore as a band. And I see bands that have 3 to 4 practices a week, and that sounds absolutely miserable to me.
Me too.
Yeah, it's just it doesn't keep it fresh. And if it doesn't keep it fresh for the artist, it's not going to keep it fresh for the audience. So you need to find those things that keep it fresh and to keep it going. And I found that over 30 years, I found a few secrets to keep that going. Somehow I came to that answer when you asked me if I listened to Thompson Twins or not.
So let's see what your bandmate would answer to the questions that I have already given Munly.
Are you even gonna acknowledge that I just mentioned Thompson Twins?
Yeah. Hey, I missed all the conversation about the Thompson Twins, and I'm sorry, my phone just freaked out, and I had to retry to log in, and then I kind of came in, and then it wouldn't let me, and I apologize, but hopefully you can hear me and see me.
All good. By the way, Munly, yes, I am gonna acknowledge that you mentioned the Thompson Twins, because we all remember that there were 2 twins bands in the '80s. You had the Thompson Twins and you had Cocteau Twins. And I find it interesting that so many people often talk about the Cocteau Twins, which is a good band. Don't get me wrong, it's a good band. It's a really good band.
Yes.
But I think the Thompson Twins were underappreciated. Let's put it like that. I think that might be there. Although, of course, different sounds somehow, but still, I think that is a band that should be dropped more often. So, Slim, you are going to get the same questions that Munly had, and you will start with the Broncos versus the Nuggets.
Whoa, that's a tough one. I'm a born and raised 4th generation Denver Bronco fan, but also Nuggets. And I think right now I would have to say the Nuggets. I actually was able to go to a game. Was it last weekend? It might have been last weekend. And it was fantastic fun to be there. And I it's always easy to love your team more when they're winning and when they're on top. And so right now I am in love with my Nuggets, though I've never fallen out of love with them.
With the Broncos,
but I'll never fall out of love with the Broncos, win or lose. I am there. it's been hard with the Nuggets, like years of just being down, years and years, and but
all of
now
a sudden
we're
you
the
win
best
something.
team of all time, and yeah, and so yeah, of course I'm gonna be excited about that. That's my team, but but I think really though, like if I have to choose between the two, it's always going to be the Denver Broncos.
Even though you have a manager who makes some strange decisions. But anyway, let's not dive into that.
Very, yeah. No, we have to, but I have to. It's my team. I have to support them. Like that's lifelong, and that's generational. Like we just love our Broncos.
Then, which artist would you rather listen to right now? Townes Van Zandt or Willie Nelson?
Oh, Willie Nelson, absolutely.
And then two more questions for both of you. And I know that Munly will try to avoid the answer, but still I'm going to ask it for both of you. And I love the way that Munly is able to answer a question without answering. That is a very cool thing. Echo and the Bunnymen versus the Jesus and Mary Chain.
Oh, it's always going to be Echo for me.
Okay.
But though I love both bands, like I'm not afraid to talk about like the music that I love, and Echo and the Bunnymen has been one of the all-time favorites of mine from the 80s, you know. For like, you know, when you're a kid, you discover music by looking at album covers, and I can't remember the name of the album, and I don't know why I can't, because I should, but they're in the snow, and there's like that big glacier thing that they're standing under, the ice, and it just, oh yeah, thank you. And so I bought the album by, you know, just the visual of it, and you know, again, we were kind of outside of the rest of the world in Denver, just kind of in a landlocked thing, and we had to discover music on our own and in our own little groups and our own clubs, and that was, I would pick albums by the cover.
I'll actually answer that as well.
Again, please.
Yeah, I'll actually answer this one for you.
Yeah, thank you.
I saw Jesus and Mary Chain live when they were younger. And the only thing I really liked about it was the lighting. And I liked that. I think a couple of them even had their backs to the audience the whole time. And that's kind of all I really got out of it. Though I will say we were in England a few years ago, and we played the same club. They were playing downstairs and we played upstairs, and I went down and listened to them. And actually, I liked it a bit more then, but certainly Echo and the Bunnymen are, and that was actually one of my first concerts as well. I was we were living someplace else, but I was at a hockey summer camp here in Denver, and they played at this old place, and Billy Bragg warmed up. So Billy Bragg was my first concert. He was great. And he actually came out, because that was when you stood in line outside all day. Mm-hmm. He came out, and he somehow borrowed a bicycle from someone local, and he came out and played an electric guitar through battery-powered speakers. And this was before anyone had even heard of Billy Bragg, and no one even believed. He was telling everyone he was playing tonight, and people even started throwing stuff at him. Not meanly; they actually thought it was funny. And I thought he was amazing as well. And speaking of that same album, I was playing in a hockey tournament in Washington, and we just had a few chaperones with us, and my parents weren't one of them. And my mother demanded of me not to go buy, you know, I had a certain stipend, and she said I could not spend it on music. And I was such a good kid, and I still feel guilty about it, but I snuck out and I went and bought that same album that Slim is talking about on cassette at a bunch of tapes and records.
Well,
but I actually came home and it was Porcupine from Echo and the Bunnymen, and I came home and told my mother because I felt so guilty about it.
And what did she say?
She didn't say anything. She just shook her head. which was worse than not saying anything.
Yeah, that's a bad.
Last one, gentlemen. Somebody who is the only musician ever to receive, or the only person to ever receive as a musician, the Nobel Prize for Literature is Bob Dylan. And of course, he got it as some kind of accolade for his storytelling abilities, as the committee also said. So I will give you two of his records. And maybe you can choose one of the two. Desire versus Blonde on Blonde.
I'm a huge Bob Dylan fan, but my favorite is Saved, which is the greatest gospel album of all time.
Okay.
But between those two, I would have to go with Desire. There's so many fantastic songs on both albums, but it would be hard for me to decide. But I'm more of a the Bob Dylan, the gospel trilogy era.
And Munly, could you choose between any of those two records, or do you say like, Dylan is not my cup of tea?
Bob Dylan is not my cup of tea.
Okay.
That's fascinating, though. I had no idea that he won that's news to me. I didn't know that. Like
10 years ago. The only musician ever to receive a Nobel Prize for Literature, Bob Dylan. Yeah. On the one hand, I can understand that. On the other hand, I would say, if you want to give it to a musician for literature, give it to Nick Cave. That would have been my choice. But who am I?
Yeah, good choice.
Thank you. So, gentlemen, thank you
I would
for
give it
your
to
time.
Munly.
Yeah, that could also be. That would also probably be a more literature-oriented choice than Mr. Dylan. Yeah.
I think it's more than anybody who I can even think of. Like that would be an excellent choice.
Yeah. We should tell the committee. We definitely should.
Yes,
I think. Yes.
Yeah.
So, gentlemen, and without joking, and I want to clarify that to everybody who thinks that now I am being sarcastic. I think that Munly is a very, very good storyteller.
Yes.
And he's also good at not giving away too much, which is very interesting. And I don't know if there are people out there who still read a lot, but those who do, whenever you read a book, and if it's a good book, there is that one moment when all of a sudden you are able to decipher the book. And you can do the same thing with Munly stories. And that moment is always the greatest moment while reading. And it's the same with Munly stories. So,
that's awesome.
Gentlemen, thanks for your time. Thanks for all the information. And also thanks for the little hints into the right direction. I like that a lot. So enjoy the rest of your day, gentlemen, and hope to see you in Europe. I know you will come to Europe this year, so I hope to see you somewhere close to me so we can have a drink.
That would be a wonderful. Absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you very much.
Very flattering. We would love to have a drink with you. That sounds great.
So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
You too.
Good night.